All right, and thank you for joining me for this month's episode of Veterans Voices. Tonight we'll be interviewing Vietnam Army veteran Ron Dalbec, and our veterans profile will be about United States Marine Corps Corporal William Leonard, who was killed in action in Vietnam. Welcome back to the show. And tonight, our interviewee is United States Army and Vietnam veteran Ron Dalbec. So Ron, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born and raised?
Worcester, 1950. It's changed quite a bit over the years. I still have family in Worcester. I still like going there for the restaurants and entertainment. But Marlboro has been my home since '73.
All right. And did you go to high school in Worcester? And
I did. I was a good Catholic boy and went to parochial school.
Yeah. All right. And so were you drafted or did you volunteer for your service?
I enlisted a week after high school. I was in basic training at 17.
Mm-hmm. And you were in the Army. Is there a reason you enlisted in the Army? You chose the Army over the other branches?
I chose the Army over the other branches because I was able to get to the MOS that I wanted, which was working as a vet tech. I was essentially a combat medic for scout dogs and sentry dogs.
Okay. And for those in the audience that might not know, what is MOS?
Military Occupational Specialty.
Okay. So it's kind of like your job title?
Yes.
Your specialty?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And you said you were in basic training. Where did you go to basic training?
Fort Dix, New Jersey.
Okay. And with the vet tech, I'm assuming there were probably some specialized training that you needed. Is there other places you received any training?
I was in Chicago for 2 months after basic training for the food and meat inspection portion of it. Mm-hmm. And then Walter Reed for 2 months for the actual medical portion of it.
Okay. And then, what were you obviously were assigned to as a vet tech? What units were you assigned to?
Well, I was in Missouri for a year and a half. What the heck is a vet tech doing in Missouri? The PX system also had a veterinary clinic for people on base. Mm-hmm. And there were also horse stables, so always stayed busy in Missouri.
Yeah.
Vietnam, it was the 175th Vet Detachment, AmeriCal Division. It was about 40 miles south of Da Nang in a naval port called Chu Lai.
Okay. And what rank and what were you when you were in?
I was very lucky as far as rank goes. I always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. I was a Spec 5 E5
mm-hmm.
Within 14 months.
Okay, yeah, that's really good. And obviously you served in overseas in Vietnam. Is there any interesting stories, anything you'd like to share about your time in Vietnam?
Yes, and it's actually connected with my Catholic school education. The French was a mandatory language in a second language in the school that I went to. The educated and wealthy Vietnamese spoke French from when the French were occupying Vietnam. I was actually worked quite a bit as an interpreter because I could speak French.
It's funny how that You probably didn't think that would come in handy.
Never.
Yeah,
Never.
it probably came in quite handy. Yeah. Now, being a vet tech, obviously, you said you worked on the scout dogs, the Army
And
working
sentry
dogs,
dogs,
sentry
yeah.
dogs. Yeah.
It was essentially a combat medic for injured Army dogs.
Mm-hmm.
We were not allowed to, the training is the same, we were not allowed to touch GI casualties unless the dogs were stable. That may sound kind of cold, but one dog would keep 100 GIs alive,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the priority. That's the nature of the job, the nature of war.
Mm-hmm.
Minimize casualties.
Yeah. In the history of the Army working dogs and the Army, the service dogs goes back
World
pretty,
War I.
pretty far. Yep. World War
And
I.
as a matter of fact, service animals in general, Spanish-American War had horses.
Mm-hmm.
World War I and World War II had horses as
Mhm.
well, and the veterinary technicians are the ones that took care of them.
Yeah. In your time in Vietnam working, you mentioned mainly dogs. Was there any other animals you ever had to work with?
No, it was always dogs. The Army did some experimenting trying to use geese at one point for alert animals because they are very vocal, but they could not take the heat.
Yeah. So they actually brought geese from
Yes,
the United States to
Mm.
Vietnam?
yeah.
Yeah. That's
I don't know the exact timeline or history of it, but I
Yeah.
do remember hearing about that
yeah.
while in the Army.
Yeah. The Army has a history of experiments with animals. I know right before the Civil War, they used camels that they brought from the Middle East to around Texas. That's interesting. You ever hear about that? And
Yes, I have.
yeah, the U.S. Army camel experiment. And Marlboro's also had a history with service dogs. I know a number went during World War II. People would donate their dogs to the program, and I know at least one dog from Berlin, Massachusetts, was killed in action. And there was a man from Marlboro that was a war dog platoon with the United States Marine Corps, World War II. That was killed on Peleliu. So the history with service animals in Marlboro, there's quite a bit of it.
It goes far.
Goes, yep, very far. Yep. Is there any other stories you'd like to share?
The connection between the dog handler and the dog goes very, very deep.
Mhm.
I was in the field when there was a dog handler who was wounded. It would prove to be fatal within a few minutes. The first thing he asked was, "Is my dog okay?" That's dedication to your animal, and the animals were obviously dedicated to the handlers as well.
Mhm.
The sad part about the service dogs in Vietnam was that none of them were brought back to the States. But there is a medical reason for that. There was a parasite carried bleeding disorder that dogs would get, and they just did not want to take the chance of bringing that disorder back to the United States. It was passed on by ticks.
Mhm. And what years did you serve?
Army was 68 to 71. Vietnam was 70 and 71.
Okay. And so I know you pretty well from the DAV and from the Marlboro Veterans Council for quite a few years now. And I know one of the things you're very passionate about is Agent Orange. Is that something you'd like to talk about?
Sure. If you've been to Vietnam, you know people, many people that have died from Agent Orange exposure. There's a saying that we have. We've all been exposed to it. sooner or later it'll find us all. All the Vietnam veterans are very passionate about POWs, Agent Orange. It isn't just the veteran that comes back that has issues with it. It affects their whole family, their networks of friends as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to make things go as DAV members. We try to make things go as easily as possible. Show them that they're not alone. What can we do to help?
Mm-hmm.
It's a brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's a brotherhood. Any of the veterans organizations.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the veterans organizations, obviously I know you have a DAV shirt on, and we talked about the DAV. What other organizations are you involved with, and when did you become involved with them?
I've been a member of the Disabled American Veterans since the early to mid 70s. At that time, work was a priority. I was still able to work. And I did most of my contributions with money, trying to help them financially. Now that I'm not able to work anymore, my contributions go more with time, trying to be involved with fundraising. One thing I'll tell you about local chapters of the disabled veterans is that the money is collected locally. It stays locally. By charter, 100% of anything that we take in has to be returned to the needy veterans and their families. You see us all the time through the summer months at Stop and Shop, Price Chopper, Market Basket. We do our best to make ourselves seen, and the local community is very, very generous and patriotic. We pick the patriotic holidays to show our faces.
Mm-hmm. In regards to Agent Orange, just wanted to let everyone know that the Massachusetts Medal of Fidelity was recently authorized by the state of Massachusetts, and that is an award from the state to the next of kin of servicemen or women that died directly as a result of things such as Agent Orange, asbestos exposure, PTSD, and another one is 9/11. Anyone that was at Ground Zero and 9/11 from the exposure there. So there's quite a few folks that have passed because of this. The Marlborough Historical Society is actively looking for the family members of these servicemen or women to help with that process to get that medal awarded for them. So if anyone is related to anyone that was affected by Agent Orange and has passed, asbestos related, especially with the Navy, PTSD or the 9/11 Ground Zero exposure, please find your way, reach out to the Historical Society. We'd love to hear from you and recognize your loved one for their sacrifice. So I think that's all the questions I had for you, Ron. I'm not sure if there's anything else you wanna talk about, or
A lot of the Vietnam veterans came back with the saying, we don't expect you to understand.
mm-hmm.
Why did you go? Well, I don't expect you to understand. It's a hard thing to understand, to want to go to conflict.
Mm-hmm.
But I added a little bit to that. Don't expect you to understand, but thank you if you do.
Yeah.
As the saying goes, you see a veteran, thank a veteran, which is a segue to freedom is not free. comes at a cost. You may not always agree with the political ramifications of conflict. I'm not sure that I do anymore. That's what happens when you get a little bit older. But always support the military.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you appreciate what we do. It allows you to appreciate what we do have. You know, when you've been in third world countries, and you see people eating fish heads and rice because that's all there is. No, we've got a good here,
Mm-hmm.
and you can thank your service member for that.
That's very well said, Ron. Thank you. And thank you for your service.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll be taking a quick break.
Stand up! All reach your hands.
All right, welcome back. And for this month's Veterans Profile, we'll be talking about William Leonard. So William was born the 4th of May, 1948 in Framingham, Massachusetts, the second of 5 children born to Edward and Barbara Leonard. He made his home with his parents at 154 Mechanic Street and was a graduate of Marlboro Vocational High School. He enlisted in the Marine Corps the 4th of April, 1966 and received his basic training at Recruit Depot, Parris Island, South Carolina. He was ultimately assigned to Company E, 2nd Battalion, 26 Marines, 3rd Marine Division, and sent to Vietnam. During his first tour of duty, William was wounded in action on the 1st of January, 1967 near Phu Bai in Tuan Tien Province, and was present with the unit during fighting near the fire base at Khe Sanh. William completed his first 13-month tour of duty and returned to the United States for a period of leave, and he was next assigned to Company F, the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, 1st Marine Division, and was once again sent to Vietnam, arriving the 2nd of September 1969. William and his fellow Marines operated in Quai Sant District of Quang Nam Province. On the 14th of January 1970, while engaged in fighting North Vietnamese regular forces in heavily concealed and fortified bunkers, William fearlessly attacked an enemy bunker with hand grenades. He was able to silence the forces within. While attempting to attack a second bunker and in a very vulnerable position, William was mortally wounded and died later in the day. For his actions, he was awarded a Silver Star posthumously. He's buried in the Pine Hill Cemetery in Sherburne, Massachusetts, and his name is memorialized on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall, panel 14 West, line 33. And Leonard Drive in Marlboro is named in his memory. So tonight we remember United States Marine Corps Corporal William Leonard. All right, and so tonight I'd like to highlight a free program for veterans that's in the community. So the Warrior Within Yoga Project has been going on around the local area for about a year now. And they recently kicked back up with free yoga for veterans on Thursday nights at 6 p.m. at the American Heritage Museum in Hudson. So this organization provides free yoga for veterans, and it is for veterans, first responders, and their families. So if anybody's interested in that type of thing, there's a pretty decent group of folks that go, and it's pretty great to be able to do it above all the tanks and jeeps and airplanes and things at the American Heritage Museum. So it's a great platform. So if anybody's interested, you can check out their website. And again, that's Thursdays at 6 p.m. All right, well, thank you for joining us for this month's episode of Veterans Voices. I'm Matty Sargent, and we'll see you next time.